Since we've already heard from the ER, lawyers, what's the stupidest reason you've been asked to sue for? And what was the outcome? So, I've been the victim of a stupid lawsuit before. It doesn't sound stupid at first, but please bear with me. One time when I was 17, I was backing out of my driveway to go to school. There was almost no traffic then because it was before the average Joe left for work in the morning. I checked to see if I was clear, and it appeared that it was. Someone thought that would be a great time to park behind me on the other side of the small road so they could let their kid wait for the bus stop. I just happened to be looking around my opposite shoulder, so I dinged the side of their bumper. They were driving an SUV, didn't want to get insurance involved, and didn't seem to be pissed, etc. I know, I was a dumb teenager, and my dad told me it'd just be cheaper to pay for the damages out of pocket rather than be an unsafe driver for the next 40 years. I ended up paying them like $500 or something since the damage was simply cosmetic. It seemed kinda high in my mind, but that was because I wasn't used to how high car parts can go, like thousands of dollars for a molded plastic kind of thing. Fast forward a few weeks, I'm served with papers to a lawsuit. Apparently, the driver and kid are claiming medical damages and many thousands of dollars of damage to their vehicle, including replacing most of the front end. They were asking for $500,000 or something. My insurance company said that since I didn't report it, there probably wasn't much they could do, but they'd check. A week after that, an insurance company agent asks me to come in and talk with them, which I do. I'm completely straight with them. They aren't pissed at all. They just wanted to get my side of the story and show me the proof the other people had that the story was as they say. First, they had an invoice from a garage that was nearly unreadable. Each line item was for multiple thousands of dollars. Among some of the ones we could read were things like replaced engine and repaired welded frame. Second, the kid had some kind of surgery done between the accident and the lawsuit, which they claim was a direct result of said accident. What was it? The kids developed appendicitis a week or two later. Third, the driver was quote-unquote undergoing treatment at a chiropractor and had a note from them saying that they would never be able to lift heavy objects again or stand for more than a few minutes at a time and would probably be in severe pain due to pinched nerves and slipped discs caused by the accident. So I'm sitting there with all these images of being in debt forever running through my head, and the insurance agent is kind of giggling at those things. I was kind of shocked, but they walked me through why each piece of their proof was just an attempt to look serious enough to get a settlement deal on the table. Sure enough, they were suing for $500,000, but willing to settle for $100,000 because the family was so exhausted in dealing with the accident. The insurance company had someone inspect my car, and they were able to say without hesitation that the car had not been through an accident like the kind the people were claiming. They wanted to examine their vehicle too, but apparently said vehicle had been given to relatives out of state because it brought back such bad memories. Also, on a hunch, they looked at the background of the people involved, and what do you know? It turns out they just got a big settlement for another serious car accident in another state. A little more digging was done, and the police were notified. I don't know if they ever went to jail for it, but apparently their proof was fake. The kid did get his appendix removed, though, but their frickin' health insurance paid for that. Jesus, they just wanted a huge payout and even dragged their kid with it. Things people do nowadays, it's pretty despicable. Story 2. I'm not a lawyer, but when I was a kid, our neighbor decided to sue us over 4 inches of land. So on that side of our house, we had a wooden catwalk that led into our backyard. It was in poor condition when we bought the house, so a few years later, my parents decided to hire some contractors to repair it. Within a week of them finishing it, my parents got a letter from a lawyer which stated that our neighbor was suing them for infringing on his property with this new catwalk. A surveyor was hired and a 3 to 4 legal battle ensued. The end result? Yeah, the catwalk was 4 inches over the property line. However, the old catwalk had been disintegrating and sloping on that side before the work, so it was probably way more than 4 inches over before. My parents had to pay to bring in a new crew and rectify that problem. He then built a fence on his front lawn right along the property line all the way down to the road. His wife vanished. We suspect that she left him for being a crazy jerk, and his kids stopped visiting. He moved out about a year after winning the court case. Oh, I almost forgot the best part of the story. He finally decided to settle. He changed the terms of what he wanted to something agreeable because, and I kid you not, the spirits told him it was time. I almost felt bad for the guy because he clearly had some sort of dementia, but he made my parents' lives a living hell for 3 to 4 years. Story 3. My dad is a lawyer, so I have a couple of these. My dad was once asked to represent a man who tripped on the sidewalk due to a tree. He said he walked that sidewalk every day. The time he walked it and tripped, apparently a tree jumped out in front of his path and tripped him. Second was a little bit weirder. A woman called my dad for legal advice because there was a spider in her baby's diaper package. When asked, she said she put that diaper with the spider in it on her baby. She wanted to sue Pampers. My dad hung up on her right then and there. And I saved the best for last. My dad represented a taxi driver for when he got into a car crash. Everything went like a normal case. My dad won the case for the driver pretty quickly, and as he was with the guy for payment, he found out that the taxi driver was blind. You read that right, he was 80% blind in both eyes. No one found out except my dad, not the taxi driver's clients, not the jury, not the judge, not even the DMV. He walked out of my dad's office with one of those tapping sticks and just drove home. Story 4. I turn down at least 2 meritless cases every day. I'm convinced that the media, friend of a friend stories, and people that cannot differentiate between getting nasty grams and getting sued blow the number of frivolous lawsuits that actually go to court out of proportion. It takes one stupid case among 50 states and 300 plus million people to make headlines every few months for Americans to think lawsuits are out of control. Moreover, journalists and lay people know far less about the law than they actually think. It leads to many frivolous cases being misportrayed in the media. Almost all attorneys that pursue tort claims work on contingency and front all costs, way more than you think after depositions and expert witnesses. Med mal cases can run 6 figures. You lose a surprising amount of money by signing stupid cases. That said, the dumbest call I've gotten is tied between, number 1, a mental patient calling because he didn't satisfy his girlfriend. I told him that'd be his girlfriend's claim. And 2, a redneck calling because he wanted his old teeth back that a dentist extracted. Slip and fall cases have the worst reputation but are almost always awful. It's a rare day and a magical set of facts where I sign up for those. In order to win, one typically needs a business to have 1, some sort of defect on their property, and 2, the business needs to have known about the defect and neglected to correct it, or the defect was there so long they should have known, for example with reasonable property inspections, and 3, the defect isn't quote-unquote open and obvious. And if you have all of those and someone injures themselves, I think a suit is reasonable. If you're profiting by inviting people on your property, you have a duty to not keep your property in negligent disrepair. And, at least in my jurisdiction, jury verdicts and settlements are much less than the media makes you think. Wage loss, medical bills, other economic expenses they incurred, and pain and suffering, not that much. Jobless people that sue don't make that much money because they have no wage loss. Those famous astronomical verdicts result from punitive damages, which only occur when the business was being particularly egregious, scandals, cover-ups, etc. Story 5. Lady calls 911 and says the dump truck in front of her is spilling gravel all over the road and her truck. I ask her if any damage is done to her vehicle, and she says she doesn't know. Officers find the dump truck, follow it about a mile, and don't observe any gravel spilling out. They pull it over anyway to get the driver company insurance information, assuming she wants to make a quote-unquote damage to property report. I asked the lady to stop with the officers or bring her vehicle to the police department so they can see the damage and do the report for her insurance company. She tells me she doesn't have time because her daughter is late for a singing lesson. And then 2 weeks later, after a hailstorm, she comes to the police department to make a report for damage, but she is driving another vehicle. She claims her truck is already at the repair shop and the estimate is $3,000. Officer tells her he can't make a report for damage without seeing the vehicle, but he goes ahead and makes an information-only report to appease her. Now she is trying to sue the PD because the officer won't testify that the dump truck is the cause of the damage. So basically, this is kind of like, I'm going to sue you unless you perjure yourself. Good Lord. Also, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, especially if you're irked by some of the idiots in these stories. For more amazing content, we got you. Let's go ahead and get back to the stories. Story 6. My sister was sued by this elderly woman. It was her senior year of high school. My sister, toward the end of the year, she's leaving school and takes a ride onto the road. Her and the elderly woman got into a car accident, and the police officer found my sister at fault. Within a year later, my parents learned that the old lady is suing them for doctor's appointments and such. When it comes to the case, we find out that the elderly woman had been taking prescription pills that affect her motor skills. Worst case, the pills were in the daughter's name, not hers. Not only that, but the old lady had been speeding in a 35-mile-per-hour school zone. She actually admitted to it. Parents didn't have to pay a dime to the old broad. Story 7. I could go on all day, but I'll limit it to the most two egregious ones. I'm a retired public defender. Before I started with the PD's office, I worked briefly for a private firm where I encountered these two cases. First, a single-parent mom had to fly to an out-of-town training for her job. Deadbeat dad wasn't paying child support because he claimed he couldn't find a job, and this will be important later. So mom left her 4-year-old daughter with her sister, the child's aunt. While mom's away, the aunt takes the girl to Chuck E. Cheese. A repairman at Chuck E. Cheese opens an access panel to repair the pulleys that operated the giant puppets. Repairman goes in back to get a tool and leaves the access panel open. The girl puts her hand in the opening and her fingers are gone. She is rushed to the ER and the docs want a parent. With mom out of town, deadbeat dad is called in. After consulting with the doctors and with the girl in the OR, deadbeat dad calls the law firm from the waiting room and wants to know if he has a case. He wants to include quote-unquote lost wages as part of his damages. I left for public defender soon after this one, and I don't know how this case was ever resolved. Second, a 28-year-old man marries a girl 12 years younger than him, much to the dismay of her parents. In this state, a person that age can marry without parental consent if she is pregnant, which she was. He proves to be a chronically unemployed and cruel husband. The mother-in-law convinces the girl to take the baby and come home. With her gone, the husband of the year goes out and finds another girl. The wife changes her mind and returns to her husband with the baby. Months later, the husband is served in a paternity suit from the other girl he was with during wife's absence. He makes an appointment with me and wants to know if I can force the mother-in-law to pay the child support to the other girl, since it was the mother-in-law's fault that wife wasn't there for him to be with, thereby forcing him to seek out the other girl. I didn't take the case. Holy heck, if I was a lawyer, I would just want to sue him myself for the emotional distress that dude caused on two girls and their families, and also for the distress I experienced after learning that dudes like him exist out in the world. But now that I think about it, am I really surprised? Nah. Story 8. I'm not a lawyer, but this was quite a while ago. Friend got a divorce after his wife took off on him, leaving him with 2 small children. He got a divorce without her presence in court because she just didn't care. And then several years later, she found out he was moving out of town to another state with the children. She found an attorney who helped her file suit to make the children stay here. Not only did it get thrown out of court by the judge, your ex-husband has sole custody, you couldn't even be bothered to show up for the final hearings even though we have your signature that you received the paperwork. You have 0 custody rights, period. Her attorney was told if he ever brought something like that before that particular judge again, he'd be charged with contempt of court. Story 9. One of my friends had to defend a government agency from a seemingly serious lawsuit. The issue was about a kindergarten, this is Australia, so it's preschool age, near a government worksite, and the issue was that some white trash woman's 4 kids have breathing issues from dangerous levels of dust. Anyway, my friend isn't high on the ladder, so a lot of the legwork fell to her. She had to go to the suspect site and found it to be a park undergoing massive landscaping. After convincing the bogan that the kids needed a medical examination if they wanted to pursue the case in a meeting, she notices the mother was a massive chain smoker. This basically led to her correctly guessing that the kids' breathing problems were caused by their mother smoking nonstop all day. Evidence to corroborate it includes the medical examination and 3 incidents where the fire department were called to the bogan's house for fires caused by smoking in bed. Well, ain't that just embarrassing? Story 10. Not a lawyer, but this involves a blatantly one. My dad owned a restaurant. One day, one of the waitresses was delivering a pot of coffee down to a customer and accidentally tripped over the customer's handbag, so she spilled the coffee over the woman. The woman tried to sue my dad because she claimed the waitress threw the coffee over her. CCTV was played in court and showed the entire thing was indeed an accident. The customer's lawyer then changed the argument and said that the coffee must have been well over 100 degrees Celsius for the customer to have felt it. My dad then said, no, and that water evaporates at 100 degrees Celsius. The lawyer then said, but surely coffee doesn't. My dad and the judge both looked at each other and with a total WTF face, case dismissed. Story 11. There was a kid whose mom tried to sue my family. The kid was annoying and nobody liked him, but he got a pity invite to my brother's pool party in our backyard. The kid went inside to go to the bathroom and tripped over the step that leads into our living room. He got a bloody nose from face planting all over our brand new carpet too. His mom, who was just as annoying as her kid, tried to sue us because the step wasn't clearly marked with a sign or hazard paint. She called her lawyer in our backyard and put him on speaker. At first, he was going to go along with it until he caught on that it happened in a private residence. Then he laughed at her and told her to just stick some tissue up her kid's nose. Story 12. A middle-aged woman lost her footing in the parking lot of my SO's work the other day. At first, she said she was fine, just scraped her knee, etc. But as soon as she sat down, she started coming up with a laundry list of imaginary injuries she had suffered. Oh, she hit her head. Oh, and she's feeling nauseous and faint. Oh, and she has a bad hip and a bad shoulder and a bad back, and she's in so much pain she can barely move. So my SO calls 911 as is protocol. The EMT gave her a clean bill of health and said that there was nothing wrong with her. A scraped knee, sure, but that was it. She refused and offered to go to the hospital saying she, quote-unquote, felt better now. Well, 10 minutes after the EMTs leave, she and her husband are out taking pictures in the parking lot. She's walking just fine, but guess who's probably going to sue? The sad part is that they're going to get a settlement even though it's total BS. It's not worth the time and trouble to let the case go to court, so the lawyers will just throw a few $1,000s her way to get her to go away. Apparently this happens pretty often. People know they'll get paid off, so they turn on the waterworks over the tiniest injury or slight. It's always people who have something or nothing to complain about but have suffered no damages. Story 13. Oof, I've got a fun one here. Gentleman comes in and says he and his daughter were sitting in their car by an intersection when some lunatic comes around the corner and runs right into the back of them. Both of them end up with whiplash. He wants to sue. Fairly standard case, right? Except as soon as we send off the paperwork notifying parties, said lunatic rings up to tell us his side of the story. Evidently, he had indeed run into the back of them and had felt terrible about it, so terrible he'd gone round to their house to apologize. Upon arriving, he was greeted by the family matriarch who informed them that man and daughter couldn't come to the door right now because they were playing on the frickin' trampoline with whiplash. Needless to say, we dropped the case and told the gentleman to F off. Story 14. So there she is, my older sister. She spent the day chaperoning some teens and preteens around Silver Dollar City and Whitewater, and now they just want to take in a bit of shopping. They're walking along the landing when a Chinese woman accosts her and starts entreating her in broken, heavily accented English to receive a foot massage from one of her masseuses. The Chinese woman is talking 90 to nothing and talks to my sis into paying for the foot massage and even a back and neck massage. Now, the strip is one of those places where your stuff has to be legit in order to be able to gain access to set your business up. Now, my sis, God, I love the broad, is easily 330 pounds, as attractive as a sumo wrestler and as gentle as a steel worker. She's also a school teacher. She receives a massage, and to her surprise, it's a guy. She was expecting the woman out front to be the masseuse. She finds it lovely, though. She's laying on her back, covered with a towel, and the man starts massaging her back. She loves it, but then things get a little weird. He slips his hands up under her chins and turns her head to the side. She said at first she was alarmed, but then he moved back to her neck and shoulders and she relaxed. When he did it the second time, she wasn't concerned, but then he kissed her. The fact that a masseuse kissed his patient is already creepy, but now I've got that image of some Chinese guy kissing my chubby sister in my head. She freaks, he leaves, she presses charges, he's arrested. Lawyer for the store arrives 3 days later and tries to get my sister to sign, saying that the matter had been resolved for both parties satisfactorily. Now, I stop her. I'm in the other room and she has a habit of reading things aloud. I turn the chair over in the process of stopping her from signing that piece of paper. She's been freaked out by what happened, bothering me nonstop, talking about what she could have done to have led the guy on and how now the parents of the kids she had chaperoned won't let her take her kids to any functions now, etc., yada, yada, yada. You can make fun of America if you want for being sue happy, but this is one of those instances when you have to sue. It's the only real way in America to hold businesses accountable for their actions and the actions of their workers. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and all the crazy stories we've heard so far today. If you made it this far, I'm sure you're going to enjoy the next one. Lawyers, what's the best way you've seen someone mess up their own court case? Story 5 is pretty messed up. I'll see you in that video, and thank you for watching this one.